Hi folks, my name is Linda Emmett and welcome to Happiness is an Inside Job. We are the creators of our own reality, we create our own lives. Our mind is our biggest limit and it's our own beliefs, behaviours and habits constantly caught in those cycles that keep us trapped where we are and stand in the way of our own happiness. So throughout this podcast, we're going to take a deep dive into some of those beliefs, habits and patterns, where they show up in your lives and what you can do to change them. Hi there folks, and on this week's podcast we're going to talk about the weight witch. This is something I work with so much with clients, but it's actually rarely something that they come in the door with. And as you all may know, at this stage, I specialise in working with stress, anxiety, and addictions. But an ongoing struggle that I'll see showing up a huge amount with clients is struggles with their weight and that relentless voice in their head that keeps them tied to behaviours that they no longer want. I'll probably see this in 6 out of 10 clients that I see. It's a regular thing that continuously comes up. So today I want to take a deep dive into that, some of the things I've struggled with myself with weight issues and some of the things that show up. A lot of the clients that come in, they tend to be feeling quite stuck in their lives. Their lives have possibly got much smaller and they're not doing some of the things that they used to do for themselves, not doing those fun activities, getting out, socialising, doing the things that bring them joy. And the main thing that they have in common is their self-worth is low. When our self-worth is low, this is when we stop doing all these things for ourselves. This is when we're really in the throes of those negative behaviours, and that weight which is there in the forefront, that voice in your head that is constantly keeping you on that hamster wheel of behaviours. And it's that voice that we're trying to run away from that causes us to want to numb out. And one of the things we do is we eat the feelings that we're having, we eat down those emotions. We eat our stresses, we eat our anxieties, we can eat our boredom, or we eat our loneliness. Loneliness is one that shows up hugely across the board. And something I want to be clear on is loneliness can show up whether you're in a relationship or whether you're single. Depending on how much of yourself you allow to be seen, how much that you actually ask for your needs to be met or share your real feelings. And again, this ties back to our self-worth. If we're afraid of rejection because we don't feel good enough, we don't show who we truly are. We don't show our vulnerabilities. We don't ask for our needs to be met, and we don't share who we really are. We can show up as this amazing independent version of ourselves that doesn't need anything, that people pleases, that just meets the needs of others, and then we can wonder why we feel really lonely. We're in the relationship, and that can drive any amount of other behaviors, including emotional eating, including, as I say, eating down those feelings of loneliness. We can feel the absolute loneliness in ourselves when we're feeling low. And the reason for this, sadly, is we tend to do the opposite of what we need when we're feeling low. When we're feeling low, we tend to isolate ourselves. We don't reach out for support. We don't tell others how we're feeling because we feel guilty or we feel ashamed. And again, this drives us back to eating our feelings, comforting ourselves with food, self-soothing, inviting the wine witch along to the weight witch party and sitting there and having a real hailstorm of self-sabotage and low self-worth. And one of the things that I've been really thinking about lately, again with seeing the clients that I see and the struggles I've had in my past, I've kind of been asking, that question of why, when we look on the likes of social medias or the television and we see beautiful pictures of the men or women living their best life in the best shape of their lives with amazing bodies, and we look at these, but we cannot get there ourselves. We look back on old photos of ourselves where we were the shape that we want to be now, but the struggle to get there is a daily struggle that really pulls down how we feel about ourselves, our worth, our value in ourselves, and our trust and belief in ourselves. So, why is it when you know what you want and you know where you want to be, you know the body you want, you know how you want to feel, why is it such a relentless struggle? And a few of the things that I've come up with through what I've went through myself with my own weight struggles and the behaviors I've had is when I look back at those pictures that when I was when in the height of bulimia, I would have been quite a low weight, a body weight I wouldn't actually like to return to. But when I look back and I ask the question, did I feel body confident then? And what was my body image like? I would have been at probably the lowest points I was in my lifetime. No, I hadn't got a good body image. Absolutely no, I did not have body confidence. Did I feel good or comfortable in my own skin? No. So even when you're thinking back or looking back on photos of yourself at times, ask yourself the question, the body that you're admiring so much now, were you body confident then? Were you proud of and comfortable within your body image? Because if not, that's one of the things that you have to work on. That's what's driving the weight witch and the inner critic that's in your head. So looking at how you felt and more focusing on what you want now rather than pictures of the past or chasing these dreams, when in reality, when you look back at those times, you probably felt as low in confidence and your self-worth was in the same place. So to achieve the goals that we want with our weight, with our body, with choosing the healthy options and actually getting to our goals, we have to change our internal thinking, our internal dialogue. That's absolutely huge in moving forward and making permanent positive change. I know for me, when I was in my 20s and 30s, as I said, I definitely didn't have a good image of my own body. When I looked in the mirror, it was something that I absolutely butchered. If anything, to be honest, I definitely didn't even see the reality of what was there. And what drove that was how I spoke to myself, how I treated myself, what I thought about myself. That then projected onto my body image. It was something else that I absolutely butchered. And as I've told you before, folks, I struggled with bulimia for the second half of my 20s right up into my mid 30s. And here's how that, I suppose, used to go daily for me, or used to look when I had bulimia. For me, I suppose one of the places I recall it hugely showing up would have been in work. Looking back, I lived in a very high stress zone. I was never at zen or zero or fully relaxed. I didn't know how to relax. I literally didn't want to be in my own mind or my own skin because I was constantly listening to a critic. So I lived a very, very fast paced life. I would have been eternally a lot more of an angrier version of myself. I was always fighting the good fight. And as I say, I lived a very stressed life. So one of the places it would have shown up for me was, say, when I was driving home from work, I just I'd get this urge or this feeling. And I know now, looking back, what I was feeling was an absolute lack of control. I felt like I couldn't control me external environment and everything that was going along on around me because I lived such a fast-paced life. But really what I couldn't manage was what was going on internally. I was carrying around a huge amount of hurt, pain and trauma. And I had no idea that's what was wrong or how to regulate or release my own emotions. So the tool I found was binging and purging. Binging, I thought, gave me the comfort, gave me what I wanted, what I needed, and the purging, in a way, to my mind, gave me back the control that I was seeking. And that was the tool I used for years. And for anyone out there that struggles with binging or bulimia, they tell you now that that urge can actually be quite strong. That urge to binge and purge, because your body views it, you've trained your mind and your body to view it as a coping mechanism. So your body brings that in for you to help you cope, because it believes that it's serving you. And even now in recent years, as I say, it's thank God I've done the work and I'm free of bulimia, God, about 8-9 years. But over recent years, I definitely have come up against the urge to purge, the urge to binge, and the urge to purge. Now, I'm not going to be on this podcast telling you I don't have times when I binge. It's much, I suppose it's much healthier in that I don't binge to the levels I used to when I had bulimia. But I do sometimes and sit down and have a mad munch. But that's different. That's something I've decided, and I don't beat myself up after it. I make the conscious choice to, oh, I'm going to sit down here and have a little Linda party, only invite myself most of the time, and have that munch. And that's fine. That's different. I am not using it to cope, and I'm not using it to control my emotions. But on saying that, there have been times when I've come up against different struggles in my life, different pains, hurts. Life kicks you in the balls sometimes. We all know that things happen, things hurt us, relationships break up, people die, all of those things. And in the midst of some of that, I have in recent years got the urge to binge and to purge. I have absolutely had them thoughts. But the difference between then and now is I've learned a huge amount of tools. I have a lot more conscious awareness. I see it for what it is. I see it as an old coping mechanism that my brain brings in sometimes in times of stress and duress, because it believes it serves me. And I can see it for that and know that it hurts me, it damages me, it does not serve me, and it takes me back to a place that I never want to return to. There's nothing more abusive to your body than sticking your own head down a toilet bowl and forcing yourself to purge. Seeing, the damage I did to me organs back then, I'm very lucky has repaired, but it's an awful thing to do to yourself. And I'm not in a place, my worth isn't low enough that I would ever do that to myself again. But it does the odd time come in as a thought or an idea when I'm low. And it's just the choices that I make now within that are different to the choices I made back then, because I know better, and because I know I deserve better. I think more of myself. Another thing that I really wanted to actually bring up and talk about today and mention to you folks, and in part because it's something that I struggled with myself for a long time. As I mentioned, body image affects 80% of women and between 60 and 70% of men, and the stats are going up on that with men. It's affecting them more in recent decades than it has in the past. But again, some of that is down to our social medias and just different changes within our living environments, how we're living now in comparison to a couple of decades ago. So body image is important to us, but it's how we, I suppose, what dictates how we feel each day. And one of the things that has hugely come up for me in the past now, and what I see with clients, is a weighing scales. Stepping onto a metal plate to decide whether you have passed or failed in your day, or passed or failed at life itself. The impact that a weighing scales can have, I know, again, certainly on me in the past, that would dictate from the time I stood on that scales, the minute I got on that, depending on what that scale said, that would 100% dictate my mood, how I was getting off it, how I dressed myself, and the hammering and the critic that was running in my head because of it. The absolute power that we can give to a weighing scales is phenomenal, and the hurt it can cause and the level of powerlessness that it creates in our lives is absolutely huge. So anybody that's working on their weight, working on their body image and building their self-worth, I would urge you to dump the scales, dump all the gunk that's hurting you, and one of those things is the weighing scales. Because when we get back off of it, what happens is you can be feeling a number of different things. One, you're feeling very low in yourself. You're feeling like you failed if that doesn't say what you wanted to say. And you'll seek to escape those feelings, to escape those low feelings. So you look for comfort, you look for soothing. You'll change how you're dressing yourself because you won't be feeling as confident. You'll feel guilt, you'll feel shame, you'll feel out of control, that you can't even control your own body's weight. You're an utter failure. That sends you back to the fridge to seek comfort, to have the foods. You're probably saying to yourself, sure, there's absolutely no point in trying anyway, all because of digits on a metal plate. Like, in reality, when we think about it, and I've slipped back down that road a couple of times in my lifetime, even up to recent years, where the plate was dictating how I was in my day and the difference in my mindset and my behaviors because of it, because of the level of power I was given it. So I decided, for me, end that negative relationship, get rid of it. If it's dictating whether you've passed or failed in your life, within your body, in your confidence, get rid of it. Get rid of what does not serve you, because otherwise you're allowing yourself to be emotionally hijacked by a plate. You know, and it took me years to realize that some of the damaging habits I had that were keeping me self-worth low and keeping me in a struggle with the weight witch. And learning and knowing your own pitfalls makes a massive difference to you creating change. And as I've said to you guys, and I will keep on saying, our own mind can be our biggest limit. The training that's already in there and the habits and patterns that are in there can be the very thing that's limiting us the most. Like, if you take shopping for an example, like, I would go down to the super up until recently. I'm not going to lie about this one. I'm off chocolate about 10 days now because that was just the best choice for me. But I'd say to myself, going into the supermarket that I didn't really need to go into, but I'd find a reason to go there, I'd say, you know, I'm just going to buy one of these large bars, and what I'll do is I'll just eat 3 squares off it. And I'd rationalise with myself that the reason I needed to buy the large bars was for convenience, because then it'd mean I didn't need to go back to the shops. I'd have me chocolate supply for the week, guys. And honestly, in the history of life, no bar has ever lived in my press, ever. I have never just eaten 3 squares of a bar. It doesn't happen unless someone offered it to me and I was only allowed to eat 2 or 3 squares because it was their bar. Very different. Other than that, no bar has ever lived in my press. I don't keep them. I eat them. And I know that. Yeah, my old patterns would tell me the same thing over and over and over, keeping me in the same habits. Another thing that would keep me caught there within the supermarket domain is I would say to myself, oh, well, buying that special offer pack of Twirls or Cadbury's, it's always the Cadbury's, you know, buying a bulk, that's a bargain. What I'll do is I'll pick them up now, and then just in case down the road I need them and they're not there. Some of that is scarcity mindset. Some of that is old patterns again. Tell me, oh, if you don't have the money next week, or if that bargain is gone and you have to pay more and you have to, this would be all the rationalization going on in a supermarket. And this happens in milliseconds in your mind, but it all keeps you in the same patterns, going back and buying the same foods and then wondering why you feel so out of control. Building awareness around your own habits and changing them gets rid of that wine witch, weight witch you're in a battle with. But it's the same with the wine. It's the same habits with the wine. And again, that shows up a lot with my clients. And it's changing and shifting the habits by becoming aware of them. Another thing that happens in the supermarkets, especially, which is where we buy the food and the wine, is muscle memory. Your brain is energy efficient, so it looks for the paths of least resistance. So it will take you along the shopping route that you always go on to buy the same things that you always buy. And a lot of this, if you're on your phone or if you're minding the kids or if you're chatting away, you're doing just on memory, just on habit, just on pattern, and therefore picking up the same things over and over and over. And they're the same things that are keeping you within those patterns. So it's one, looking at ways out of that, writing a list before you go. It breaks those subconscious patterns because you actively have a list and sticking to that list, or changing your pattern. One, you can change your supermarket, or changing your pattern within the supermarket. Go in a different route, go in a different way, because that way you have to consciously think in every aisle that you're going into or the direction you're going. So you're far more aware of what you're picking up. And after that, the level of empowerment. I've walked out of supermarkets feeling like a hero, wondering would people stand on me cape on the way out. I felt that empowered when I made these small changes. When I stopped buying the things that I was constantly buying and then wondering why I was in the same habits of eating them. Another thing I've recently discovered, and again, the power of our own mind, is when I wouldn't buy the chocolate or whatever it was, the things that I loved, which was mainly chocolate and popcorn and Club Orange, sneaking those in there, Kerrygold butter. If I didn't buy the chocolate, I didn't realise up until recently that I would instead be buying the Kerrygold butter and the bread and cheese. And these things are fine on their own, but if you have very bad habits with them, it's looking at changing them. For me, with Kerrygold butter, I have very bad habits with it. Again, if I look back to where they came from, when I was younger, I would spend a huge amount of time over in my grandparents. And where I grew up and when I was growing up, things were very scarce. We didn't have a lot. What was also scarce, I had 3 siblings. We were in a recession and money was scarce. We weren't starving, but there weren't any luxuries or things like that. And there was times you scrimped and scraped and things like that. And as I say, there weren't any luxuries. But then I'd go over to my grandparents, which to me as a kid was a place of utter luxury. There was like lemonade every day, there was Kerrygold butter, you'd go around and get your Cadbury's bars in the shop, there was Brennan's batch bread, and all of these, to me as a kid, all these luxurious things. And if I look at the things I buy now, there's replicas of, and now where I went over to my nanny and granddad, they absolutely idolized the bones of me. It was a place of being spoiled, fun, love, abundance, riches. It's where they used to buy me the best fancy paper, and I relate a lot of these foods. Those particular, if I took a list of what the things I buy to comfort me or to have a binge party and look back at those times in my grandparents, they match up 9 out of 10. It's actually shocking because the foods I'm buying, I attach to feelings and memories, and that's what drives me buying them. It's subconsciously, I think I'm going to get those emotions from them. And awareness is absolutely powerful. So looking at the particular foods that you turn to and seeing the reasons that you turn them. Think of them particular foods within your childhood. Were they things you could not have at all? Were they things you had in particular places? Did you get them for rewards, treats, when you done well? At Christmas when things felt amazing, what are the memories you're attaching to them? Because these will give you huge answers, because you're not getting those feelings now from them. It's just a pattern you're in. Another thing that I'll hear quite a bit from clients, and I'm trying to smash out a few things that show up, that stand in our way, and I know certainly stood in my way for a long time. I stayed in particular patterns and habits that I didn't feel good, felt out of control, and did impact my own self-worth and my own beliefs. So another thing that would have showed up quite a bit was lack of planning. When it came to me trying to eat healthy, even banish the bulimia at the time, I would never plan. I would tell you, I wasn't a planner. I would actually literally avoid planning. So when it came to meal plans and deciding what I was going to have, which is extremely helpful when you're trying to change your lifestyle and your diet, it was something I hugely resisted. And when I look back on that, I lived in survival mode for years, very much getting by day to day, week to week, surviving and getting through. That's the mindset that I was in, and it very much showed up in a reluctance to plan in any aspect in my life, with money, with foods, with planning holidays, different things like that. I was very whimsical, and a lot of that comes from survival mindset. Survivors often feel, what's the point of planning? I'm absolutely powerless against what will happen anyway. And this shows up in every aspect of our lives, including food planning. There's that subconscious feeling or belief that, well, what's the point? I'm not going to stick to it anyway. Things are going to happen that are just going to get in the way. It's all going to fall down. So what's the point? And just motoring on. So being aware of your own mindset and your own thinking, because what had happened to the non-planner, Misha, halfway through the week, you find yourself completely sabotaging because you haven't planned, and then back to feeling out of control again. And all that's stopping you is you're not aware of your own behaviours and patterns. And planning, although it feels uncomfortable at the time, as all change does, you will, any change, you'll feel yourself resistant, because your mind wants to keeps you in the comfort zone. But when you're feeling resistance, that means that your mind is already starting to change. Otherwise, you wouldn't be feeling resistance. So it is just building the plan anyway. Just building the plan. Even for the next day, the next 2 days, don't overwhelm yourself by doing a month's plan. Just start creating small plans and being aware of the weight witch coming in and, telling you you're going to fall off the wagon, telling you what's the point in doing it anyway, being aware of your own sabotage, your own voice. As I mentioned, this is only a coping mechanism that you've built in. That inner critic never developed to sabotage or hurt you. Although it is doing that now, when that inner critic was first born in you, it came in to serve a purpose. It came in as a protective mechanism to keep you in a particular place, that you got your needs met, that you survived. And for a lot of us, we've carried these protective mechanisms for decades, and now they're not serving us. Now they're keeping us stuck, keeping us in pain, and keeping us in places that we don't want to be. But it's learning to build a better relationship with that. Learning to build a relationship with the wine, I keep saying wine witch, the weight witch. Learning to ask the question, why am I thinking like this? Why am I being this mean to myself? Why am I telling myself that I'm going to fail all the time? And learning to talk back to yourself, learning to answer yourself, learning to say, well, that has happened to me in the past because of the voice I was listening to in my head, the patterns I was in, and the behaviours I had. But just like any habit you already have, you can develop new habits at any time you choose, just by repetition. And that includes how you're speaking to yourself. Changing your weight and building positive body image all comes in how you're talking to yourself, changing that voice, changing him or her into a cheerleader. The person that tells you, you've got this, you're smashing it out today. Become your own cheerleader. One of the greatest things that I learned many years ago was in times of pain or hurt or fear that we all feel at times, is having the ability to literally put my own arms around me and say, I'm getting a bit emotional. It's okay, Lynn. I've got you. I've got you. I've got you. Just literally putting my own arms around me and saying, it's okay. I've got this. You're okay. You will be okay. Because we abandon ourselves so much. And it's changing that with the small things. Change is in the small choices. Don't allow yourself to go straight into overwhelm by looking at the whole ladder and not just seeing the first step. Change one sentence a day you say to yourself. Get into the habit of asking yourself the question, and this is huge, guys. What can I do right now? In this moment, what can I do right now? Be it writing a food list, making a food choice, saying something kind to yourself, going for a walk, and remembering, if you change the present, if you change the choice you're making now, you're already changing the future. It's just in the small choices. So that's it for me for this week, guys. I hope you really enjoyed it and got some fabulous takeaways. And as always, I invite you to connect in with me across social media, or check me out on my website, www.yourgifttoyou.com, or email me, linda@yourgifttoyou.com, guys, because I'd love to hear from you and any topics you'd like for us to talk about, or any more learnings that you want. And please remember, give me those reviews, because it keeps the podcast getting out there to more people. So chat to you very soon, guys. Bye bye.